Hello student, welcome to YS Baba. We are here with yet another very important session wherein we are going to help you to approach the 2025 prelims exam with an ease. Now this approach needs analysis of a lot of things. First is the syllabus, that is followed by the previous year's question paper, then the current affair aspect, the recent 1.5 year current affair aspect, so that you're in a position to understand which topic is to be studied and in what depth it is to be studied, followed by the mock questions of that specific topic. Okay, so this needs a systematic preparation, and here at IS Baba we are there to help you to strategize this thing. As a student, as a beginner, or be it veteran, all of the students is finding difficult in the recent year, especially with respect to the prelims. The question paper have become difficult and the options have become more difficult. So doing this entire thing all on your own is not going to uh, possible, because it needs extensive research and it needs the time. So we are here to ease your preparation. So for example, in this topic I am going to approach climatology, and within the climatology there is an important subtopic within the climatology, that is the composition and structure of atmosphere. So let us first see the syllabus given by the UPSC. So geography syllabus given by the UPSC is 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 the India and world geography, the physical geography, the social geography, the economic geography. So the physical geography, the social and the economic, there is no mention of the term climatology altogether. But how did we get to know? Through the analysis of previous year's question paper. So if you look into the previous year's question paper of prelims, climatology have been asked, a good number of times in the recent years, and in the year 2024 you can see alone 2024 there were 6 questions. One should not get influenced by just 1 or 2 year trend. We should be looking into the past 4 or 5 years of the trend. We should be looking into the frequency of the number of questions being asked from that specific topic. So here climatology seems important. Climatology is a part of the physical geography, but not being specifically mentioned by UPSC. No issues, we got this thing done for you for every subject and for every topic. But within the climatology there are a lot of various other subtopics. Okay, so again this approach is simple. We are supposed to analyze the previous year's question paper. Through the analysis of previous year's question paper, we got an understanding that a lot of topics from the climatology, that is the structure of the atmosphere, the structure and the composition of that of the atmosphere. Okay, the heat budget, and the insolation, that is incoming solar radiation, the factors responsible for the temperature distribution of that of the world. Okay, and further the atmospheric pressure systems, there are many questions on that. Then there are questions on the wind pattern, the primary, secondary, tertiary wind being very important favorite area of UPSC. There are questions on cyclones, the anticyclones. There are questions on jet streams. For example, 2 years ago UPSC had asked question on the jet streams also, and the climatic region of the world. Okay, climatic regions of the world. So we are getting an understanding of these things because of analysis of previous year's question paper. So within the climatology, let us take a small topic, that is structure and the composition of that of the atmosphere. Okay, and if time permits, we'll also take the heat budget and insolation. Okay, the objective is to hit the core topic and not to randomly prepare anything. So the composition and structure of the atmosphere. So here is the geography question paper. Within that we have done the segregation on the basis of topic, like for example climatology, and within climatology we have now composition and structure of atmosphere. So within this composition and structure of atmosphere, what are the dimensions? They have asked upon the thickness of troposphere. Okay. Then what is the reason behind that? This question was asked in 2024. Similarly, they had asked question on the water vapor, okay, with respect to that of altitude and the latitude also. At times they ask, okay, they had asked pole wise, so it is the latitude and altitude both, okay. Then they had asked the question on thickness of the atmosphere. So this seems relatively similar as we saw the question number 1. They had asked question with respect to that of the insulation, convective currents, okay. Then they had asked question on stratosphere, okay, and what is the reason that jet aircraft fly easily and smoothly in the stratosphere? Fair enough. Then they had asked question on ionosphere. So we saw there was question on troposphere, stratosphere, ionosphere. So in different structure of that of the atmosphere, we are supposed to tackle this, okay. So if we happen to focus only on these aspects, okay, we get an understanding that we are supposed to study the different structure and the composition of that of the atmosphere. Now if I look into the question number 1, thickness of the troposphere, okay, at the equator as compared to that of the pole, and if I see the reason, at equator the heat is transported to the greater height by strong convectional currents. So I should be knowing what are the convectional currents, okay. Similarly, if I look into this question number 3, if I, so you see the thickness of the atmosphere is maximum over the equator and high insulation and strong convection occur over the equator. Don't you think it is a repeated question? So yes, in the year 2004, this question and this question number 1, which was asked in the year 2024, okay, it is a repeated question. So it was asked after a gap of 20 years, okay. So some people, some students, usually we see that they do not consider very old questions. Like for example, they will do last 4-5 years question paper. You should see the trend from this previous few years. You see the trend from previous few years, but we would suggest solve at least 20 to 25 years of question paper, because the source of UPSC question is the previous year's UPSC question paper itself, okay. It is a very authentic source, okay. There are many questions that is being repeated. At least the concept based question will be repeated. The current affair will definitely change, but the concept based questions are evergreen, okay. The concept based question ka source is the previous year's question paper itself, so never skip the previous year's question paper. Now this question number 1, it was what was the reason that it was asked? It was basically a fundamental static based question, and there are like hint also related to this question how it could be solved. So regarding the hint, regarding the tricks and the traps in the questions, we are going to take a separate session for that, for the previous year's question paper analysis. Subject wise, within that, topic wise, within that, we will take it further subtopic wise, okay. And it is given clearly in the 11th standard NCERT, fundamentals of the physical geography, chapter number 7, okay. And that year, that is 2024, it was mentioned in the CNBC news also that because of the climate change, because of the global warming, climate is changing, climate change is happening, and because of this climate change, it is altering the atmospheric layers basically, okay. So you must have studied that basically this is how our thickness of the troposphere looks like, okay. This is equator and this is poles, okay. This is equator and the poles, okay. So because of the climate change, what is happening is the thickness of the troposphere is increasing, because global warming is causing the hot air to rise much up into the troposphere. Because of that, the troposphere thickness is said to be increased, okay. This was also confirmed by the recent one of the study conducted by the government of the China also, that the thickness of the troposphere is increasing. So again, it's there in the news, okay. At times you can directly expect a fundamental question. The fundamental questions are given in your 11th standard NCERT, and many a times the statement is repeated as it is. So you do not run behind the shortcut material, or you do not run behind the ready-made material. Okay, the authentic material, like for example NCRT. And what we have done is, in the NCRT content we have also added lots of missing points. We call that as the value added. Okay, the value addition of the same, and in the form of the value added notes, that is VAN, we have come across our notes as well. We have not bypassed the NCRT. Okay, NCRT is never to be bypassed. So from here I'm getting some understanding that I'm supposed to study the thickness of the atmosphere, I'm supposed to study this concept called as a convection, and I'm supposed to study the different layers of that of the atmosphere, that is troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, ionosphere, thermosphere. So all of these is to be studied. Okay, so out here if we look into the structures and the composition of that of the atmosphere, we see that the atmosphere is broadly classified into two categories. Okay, it is broadly classified into two categories. One, on the basis of chemical composition, it is known as homosphere and heterosphere. Homosphere extends till the height of 100 km from surface, and heterosphere extends beyond 100 km. Okay, so homosphere basically, as the name indicates, the similar composition is there on every layer. Okay, similar composition in respective layers. So it could be in the form of the temperature, in the form of the different atmospheric gases. Okay, on the basis of chemical composition. And heterosphere, wherein mixture of all the gases is there, wherein specific differentiation is not so easy. The second basis of the classification is the physical property of the composition, and on the physical property like the temperature, the pressure, okay, the density. On the basis of these properties, on the basis of these physical property, the atmosphere is classified into troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere. Within thermosphere there is ionosphere and exosphere. Okay, so you can see these layers: the troposphere, the stratosphere, mesosphere, okay, and the exosphere and ionosphere. And the intermediate layers, you can see the tropopause, the stratopause, the mesopause. Okay, all of these compositions you can certainly see. You would have certainly studied this into your NCRT as well. Now the question is, this seems relatively a simple topic. Okay, but when you talk about UPSC questions, the UPSC questions will not be directly about this layers like the troposphere, stratosphere. They are not going to directly ask upon these layers. They will ask upon thickness of the troposphere. So you can see out here, in the case of the troposphere, it extends from surface to 8 to 18 kilometer. It extends from the surface to that of 8 to 18 kilometer. So what is the reason that troposphere is thin at the pole and it is quite thick at the equator? So here you will get this understanding that troposphere is thin at the pole because in the polar region, the surface is quite cold. Yes or no? You consider this. You consider the sun, and you consider the sun is there along the tropics for most part of the year. So the tropical region is relatively warmer. The tropical region is warmer, so the surface is warm, and the air above that surface, that will also become hot enough, and this hot air will be rising upward. Okay, the hot air will be rising upward. So in this way, the hot air which is rising upward is also transporting the heat energy with them. So this mechanism is called as the convection. So convection is basically vertical rise of that of the heat energy. Okay, it is one of the way or process through which the transfer of the heat energy takes place. Now coming to the polar region. So the polar region do not receive sufficient amount of the sunlight. Because of that, polar region surface is cold. When the surface is cold, the air above the surface is also cold. When the air is cold, it is denser. The air is cold, it is denser, and it is not rising to a greater height. Because of that, the atmospheric thickness is relatively less. And on contrary, we had studied In the tropical region, when sunlight is present for most part of the year, the surface becomes hot. The surface becomes hot, and the air above the surface, that also becomes hot. Hot air becomes relatively lighter, and the law of the nature says the lighter material goes above and the denser material remains at the bottom. Okay, so in this way we will see this thickness of this atmosphere, which is maximum at the equator and it is minimum at that the poles. Okay, I hope this is understood. For this we came across a term called as convection. So what is convection? Convection is nothing but the movement of air vertically upwards. Okay, and in this process the transfer of the heat energy takes place. Okay, the transfer of the heat energy takes place. Okay, so there is one more term associated with this, conduction. Conduction is again a transfer of the heat energy, but no movement of air particles, only the heat energy transfer takes place. Okay, no movement of that of the air particles, only transfer of the energy takes place. And in convection, not only the heat but the air particles also travels, or the movement of the air particles also takes place. Okay, so convection leads to relatively more movement or more transfer of that of the heat energy. Okay, so there is one more aspect related to this troposphere. We studied that the thickness was maximum at the equator, and at the pole the thickness was minimum. And what about when the hot air is rising upward? When the hot is rising upwards, so when the air is rising upward, it will start to lose away the heat energy. Okay, because what was the source of that of the heat energy of the air? The surface was becoming hot. Because of that, the air in contact with the surface, that was becoming hot. When this hot air was rising upward, so basically it was moving away from the surface, that is the source of the heat energy. As it was moving away from the source of heat energy, it was losing away the heat energy and it was becoming cooler and cooler. So at every 1 kilometer, it was losing away its heat energy by 6.5 degrees Celsius, or it was becoming cooler by 6.5 degrees Celsius every 1 kilometer up in the altitude. Or we can also say that 1 degree Celsius temperature decreased after every 165 meter increase in the height, because atmosphere is always heated from below. This was also a UPSC Prelims statement. Okay, this statement was as it is there in the prelims. In fact, this statement that the atmosphere is maximum thickness at the equator, this was also there in the prelims. This statement, it is mainly happening because of this convection. This statement was also there in the prelims. So it's not merely understanding the concept. You are studying these concepts so that you can write the prelims exam, you can write the mains exam. So why not get familiar with the prelims statement? Okay, so that when you are solving the question, it is convenient for you when you come across these type of statements. So thickness we understood. Temperature gradient is basically the difference in this temperature as the altitude increases, that is, as the height increases, temperature starts to decrease. What about the temperature? If we look into the graph of that of the temperature, we don't see this type of graph. We saw this graph in the case of thickness, but when it comes to the temperature is not maximum over the equator. You can see the temperature is maximum at the tropics, not at the equator. Because what happens at the equator, as the hot air is rising, as this hot air is rising, what happens to this hot air is, when they are rising above, what did we see? That they are becoming cooler and cooler. So in that case, what will happen is it will start condensing. It will get condensed, cloud formation will take place, precipitation will happen. When the precipitation will happen, the temperature will then fall by few degrees. Okay, the temperature will fall by few degrees, and the temperature will not become maximum at the equator, rather the temperature will be maximum at the tropics. Okay, and within the tropic, the temperature will be maximum at on the deserts. The temperature is maximum on the deserts. Okay, so the temperature is not maximum at the tropics. So UPSC may frame a statement like this. Okay, because you are familiar with this atmospheric thickness or troposphere thickness, UPSC will next time not ask about thickness, it will ask about temperature. That the troposphere is maximum hot at the equator. Wrong. It is maximum hot at the tropics. Within the tropics, it is maximum hot at the deserts. Okay. So likewise, we need to get into the depth of the topic by having done a kind of a detailed surgery of every topic, every question that is asked by the UPSC. Then framing, one topics and the subtopic for ourselves, and then approaching those topic accordingly. So, has UPSC ever said that you are supposed to read NCERT? Has UPSC said that you are supposed to read any kind of books? UPSC have not told about any books. So the objective should not be books. The objective should not be the news. The objective should be topics, because UPSC has given the syllabus. Within the syllabus, what is there? Topics are there. But the depth of the topic is understood through previous year's question paper. So this is given by UPSC. Question paper is also framed by the UPSC. So these are two authentic sources. Having done this, then you approach any book, any current affair, any newspaper. Okay, the objective should always remain common, that you are supposed to complete the topic, not the book. Okay, so these kind of understanding and more critical understanding, like for example, some of these resources you will get directly in the NCERT, but there are some topic which is beyond the understanding of that of the student. For example, here this topic, solar radiations and heat budget. The heat budget is there in the NCERT. It's very simple. Also, you would see that 2024 they had asked the question: the atmosphere is heated more by the incoming solar radiation than by the terrestrial radiation. So you need to understand what is the difference between incoming solar radiation and what is terrestrial radiation. Fair enough. Second, it says carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases in the atmosphere are good absorber of long wave radiation. So it means you are also supposed to understand long wave radiation. You're supposed to understand what are greenhouse gases. Okay, the basic is there in the NCERT, but this question is demanding you to have this technical understanding. What is long wave? What is short wave radiation? What is incoming solar radiation? What is terrestrial radiation? All is not explained in the NCERT. So you have to get this understanding done. And UPSC had not asked this question first time. In way back in the year 2012 also this similar question was asked. Some understanding you will get from the 11th standard NCERT, that is chapter number 8, but for a detailed understanding you need to refer this. For example, question number 7, which was this question was asked in the year 2023, and the student felt that this is the most difficult year or most difficult question paper set by the UPSC. So let me tell you that as a student of PEP, many of our students had cleared 2023 PEP, and as a student they had even given a very nice feedback about the way we approach a topic and the way we help the student clear the every stage of the exam, most importantly prelims. So having clear prelims, it increases the possibility of getting selected, because only few thousand will be there in the mains. So prelims may out here, since 100 questions are there, 6 different subject is there, just 2 hours of time is there, it is more uncertain and very very dicey. So you do not have luxury of time to keep wandering here and there. So at IS Baba, with the help of this PEP program, we are going to hit the bullseye. So like this question, with reference to the earth atmosphere, which one of the following statement is correct? So here it is talking about the insolation at equator and insolation at poles. So they are asking comparison. Then they have talked about infrared and proportion of infrared in insolation. Then they have talked about infrared being absorbed by that of this water vapor, and again infrared being part of the visible spectrum of electromagnetic waves of this radiation. So you're understanding that on the infrared itself, they had asked about its proportion in insolation, its absorption by water vapor, and it's part of being the part of the electromagnetic waves. So here let us see this with respect to that of the heat budget. So this is there. that whatever is the amount of the sunlight that is coming out of that, 2 unit of sunlight is reflected from the snow covered mountain, 27 unit is reflected from the clouds, from that of the lower clouds, higher clouds both, and some unit is reflected by that of the dust particles. So around 35 unit is reflected back, which is known as that of the albedo. So how much is left out of 165? So out of those 65 unit, 14 unit is directly absorbed by the atmosphere. So remaining is 51 unit. 51 unit is actually falling on that of the surface of the earth. Okay, it is actually falling on that of the surface of the earth. Out of this 15 unit, 34, so it is falling on the surface and it is going reflecting back again now. So some unit will be directly radiated into the space, that is 17 units, but some unit, that is 34 units, will be again absorbed by that of the the atmosphere. Okay, now here if I see 14 unit plus 65 unit, which is 48 unit, so 48 unit is radiated. So in this case of 17 unit, it is directly radiated. In the case of 48 unit, it is re-radiated into the space, and ultimately this 17 unit, this 48 unit makes it a 65 unit. Okay, which causes the atmospheric cooling. Okay, atmospheric cooling. So here in this case, whatever was the amount of the sunlight that had fallen have all escaped or released back into the space. So why do we have atmospheric heating then? Why do we talk about global warming if all the unit is radiated back into the space? Try to understand this by understanding one fact, that whatever is the amount of this insolation that is coming, okay, whatever is the amount of insolation, that is incoming solar radiation. So out of this solar radiation, we receive ultraviolet radiation, we receive visible radiation, and we receive infrared radiation. Okay, so it is 5% ultraviolet radiation, 42% the visible radiation, and infrared radiation is 53. You can see in this case also that the insolation, incoming short wave, the solar radiation that is coming, so it is basically having the basically the one that is reaching the surface. Okay, reaching that of the surface is mainly the visible and the infrared radiation. Only 5% of UV radiation reaches that of this earth. So we mainly have visible radiations, we have infrared radiation. So here in this case, you can see it is only the 5% of UV radiation, visible radiation is 42%, and 53% is the infrared radiation. Okay, you can see that they are radiations. So radiations have frequencies and the wavelength is there. So you can see with respect to that of wavelength, the wavelength of visible light you see 380 to 700 nanometers, and that of UV radiation, it is less than 380, and infrared radiation more than 700, isn't it? So all of these, be it the UV radiations or visible radiation or the infrared radiation, all of these are basically distinct radiation, but they form part of the solar radiation. You must be knowing about UV radiation. UV radiation causes the skin cancer, but most of these UV radiation is also being trapped by the ozone layer, which is present in the stratosphere. Okay, so there is no much worry from this UV radiation, unless ozone layer itself is destroyed through the ozone depleting substances. Then we have visible light. So visible light, may we have this Vibgyor, that is violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, and the red, having the respective set of frequencies and wavelength. And lastly, we have the infrared radiation. So infrared radiation, it is this radiation which is being absorbed by the greenhouse gases. So it is not visible light. Visible light do not causes heating. Okay, the UV radiation does not cause heating. It is the infrared radiation that causes atmospheric heating. Okay, it is the infrared radiation that causes atmospheric heating. Okay, and why? Because this infrared is absorbed by greenhouse gases. Which are these greenhouse gases? This is carbon dioxide, water vapor, methane, sulfur dioxide, nitrous oxide. Okay, so having absorbed by these, what will happen is it will increase the stay time. It will increase the stay time of the sunlight into the atmosphere. When the stay time increases, what will then happen? It will increase the temperature. Atmosphere will become warmer. So let us say if the earth instead of 24 hours, okay, if the earth is 30, the day is 30 hours, and within this 30 hours, let us say the day was 12 hours, and let us say the night was 18 hours. So in this case, if the night is 18 hours, it means it is getting sufficient time for the radiation that have fallen on the earth in these 12 hours. It is getting sufficient time to radiate back at the night time. So night will become relatively cooler, and the next day it is going to be like a relatively less temperature on the surface of the earth. Okay, so for this radiation, for this cannot happen as such that 24 hours become 30 hours. The length of the rotation of the earth will not change unless the rotation speed changes. If the speed slows down, rotation time can be increased, but that is not what is there in the control of the human being. What is there in the control of the human being is the release of these greenhouse gases. Okay, so further what we are understanding this, that in the case of this sunlight, the sunlight that is coming is what? Insolation, or technically it is incoming short wave solar radiation. So the radiation that is coming is having frequency, it is having wavelength. So the incoming solar radiation have short wavelengths, and short wavelength do not causes heating. Short wave radiation do not causes heating, and this radiation touches the surface, and when it reflects back, okay, this becomes long wavelength. Okay, that this becomes long wavelength. So long wavelength radiation are captured by greenhouse gases. These greenhouse gases then cause atmospheric heating. So, so it is for this purpose. Let us say if a person is, even if it's standing on the mountain, from the mountain he is close to that of the sun. Okay, he will feel less temperature because incoming sunlight is not causing heating only. On the other hand, this person which is relatively far off, so in spite of being far off, he will feel relatively hotter. Why? Because incoming sunlight is not causing atmospheric heating. It is the radiations which is going back from the surface of the earth. So once the surface of the earth becomes hot, then the air above that becomes hot. So the closer you are towards the surface of the earth, the closer you are towards the surface of the earth, hotter you will be feeling, and far away from that of the surface of the earth, the cooler you are going to feel. Okay, so in this way, this question which was asked by UPSC was quite technical, and merely doing the NCRT, merely the NCRT was not sufficient enough for solving these type of the questions. For example, you can see this question 24: atmosphere is heated more by incoming solar radiation than by terrestrial radiation. This seems to be wrong. Yes, it is heated more by terrestrial radiation. Carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases in the atmosphere are good absorber of long wave radiation. Outgoing radiations are long wave radiations, and CO2 and other greenhouse gases absorb this long wave radiations. What are this? Infrared radiation. So when we are solving previous year's question paper, you should also keep on writing these additional information in front of the question, so that your question paper becomes an important study material as well. If we look into the question number 7, which was considered relatively more difficult, it says with reference to the earth atmosphere, which one of the following statement is correct? The total amount of the insolation received at the equator is roughly 10 times than that received at the poles. See, we saw that at the equator the insolation is received, but we saw the maximum thickness of the maximum thickness of that of the troposphere was at the equator, but maximum temperature was not there at the equator. I hope you remember that. So if we look into some facts, some facts, spatial distribution of the insolation at the tropics, we receive 320 watt per meter square per day of the sunlight or the insolation, and at the poles it is merely 70. Okay, it is merely 70 watts per meter square per day. So comparison, if you see with respect to that of the comparison, So it is going to be 4 to 5 times, right? 4 to 5 times. And here in this question it says the total amount of insolation received at the equator is roughly 10 times than received at the pole. No, it is 4 to 5 times. Option B says infrared constitute roughly 2/3 of the insolation. So we said we studied that infrared constitute 53%, visible light constitute 42%, and UV radiation constitute 5%. So it is 53%, not 2/3. 2/3 indicates 66%, 53%. If it is half, then this statement would have been correct. Statement C says infrared waves are largely absorbed by water vapor. Water vapor is what? An important greenhouse gases concentrated in lower atmosphere. This is true. And it is because of this it causes atmospheric heating, right? Last option, infrared waves are part of visible spectrum of electromagnetic waves. So we saw it was UV radiation which was having the frequent wavelength less than 380 nanometer, and then we had visible light. So visible light had wavelength between 380 to 790 nanometer, and beyond this was the infrared radiations. Yes or no? So how come infrared becomes part of the visible spectrum? It is not. All of these are distinct and they have the different set of wavelength and frequency. So in this way we are able to understand that merely doing the NCERT is not going to be that sufficient enough. For that more technical detail is needed, because UPSC have been asking question on the geography since long time. Within that they have been asking question on the climatology since long time. Okay, so now today also they are going to ask question on the climatology, but today they are going into the depth of the topic, and this depth is not there in the NCERT at all. Okay, because NCERT is written for 11th standard student, 12th standard student, and you all are graduate, postgraduate. So this is the exam which is demanding you to go into the depth of the topic now. So just a shallow level knowledge of the NCERT is not going to help you. Now to what depth one should be going? Okay, as a student you may go too much detail into the detail of any topic and you may miss the important one. So this depth will be like understood by analyzing the previous year's question paper. Not only of that previous year's question paper, but almost all the topics analysis should be done taking previous year's question paper in reference, and this is a job that we as a teacher do. Okay, so we would be helping you in all the possible sense with respect to analyzing, strategizing, framing a topic, the subtopics, the depth up to which you are supposed to go, and then also to help you with the questions, help you to clear the prelims, mains, interview, and finally into the merit list. Okay, likewise we will come across many more topics. Okay, see you in the next section. Thank you, student.